A low rumble rolled across the waters of the northern Persian Gulf just before dawn. The air above Kharg Island, Iran's most important oil export hub, shimmered with the sudden flash of incoming precision strikes. Within seconds, multiple detonations echoed across the island's coastline, lighting up the night sky in bursts of orange and white. Radar installations blinked offline. Fuel storage facilities erupted into controlled fires. And several hardened military compounds, long believed to house Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval infrastructure, were struck in rapid succession. MON satellite imagery released shortly afterward showed smoke rising in several columns from the island's western military zone. Kharg Island, positioned roughly or kilometers off Iran's southern coast, has long functioned as the central artery of Iran's crude oil export system. Tankers depart from its terminals carrying millions of barrels of oil each week through the narrow shipping lanes of the Persian Gulf. Planned, but this time the target was not simply energy infrastructure. According to early reports from U.S. defense sources cited by American media outlets, the operation focused on military installations embedded within the broader port complex. These sites allegedly supported Iranian naval coordination, drone monitoring, and maritime surveillance operations across the Gulf. Within minutes of the strikes, Iranian air defense units began broadcasting emergency signals across regional frequencies. Commercial shipping vessels nearby reported seeing flashes from multiple impact points along the island's military perimeter. This was not simply a strike on infrastructure, it was a signal aimed at the strategic center of Iran's energy and maritime power projection. According to Iranian state media outlets, the strikes were described as a direct and deliberate attack on Iran's sovereign territory. Iranian officials stated that several military facilities associated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, were struck by precision-guided munitions launched from offshore platforms operating in the Persian Gulf. Iranian military spokesmen claim the targeted compounds included command centers used to coordinate maritime patrol operations and coastal defense systems designed to monitor shipping activity throughout the region. Iranian officials said the facilities on Kharg Island play a dual role. On one hand, they support the security of Iran's most critical oil export terminal. On the other, they provide surveillance coverage across vital maritime routes that carry nearly 1/5 of the world's seaborne oil shipments. Iranian authorities argued that the attack was designed to disrupt both functions simultaneously. According to statements broadcast by Iranian state television, local air defense units attempted to intercept incoming projectiles but were overwhelmed by what officials described as a coordinated wave of precision strikes. Iranian spokesman said several buildings within the military zone sustained structural damage and that emergency response teams were deployed immediately after the explosions. Iranian officials further claimed that the strike represents an escalation targeting the economic backbone of the country. Kharg Island handles the majority of Iran's crude exports, making it both an economic lifeline and a strategic pressure point. In public remarks carried by state media, Iranian leaders warned that any attempt to threaten the island's operational capacity would be viewed as a direct attack on Iran's economic sovereignty and national security. But the story quickly became far more complicated. Before we break down the competing claims and what Kharg Island means for the global energy system, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest dramatic developments shaping global geopolitics. According to U.S. defense officials cited by several American media outlets, the operation targeting Kharg Island was not directed at Iran's oil export infrastructure itself, but rather at military installations embedded within the island's broader industrial zone. U.S. Officials reportedly stated that the targets included facilities used by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps to coordinate maritime surveillance and drone monitoring across the Persian Gulf. American defense analyst noted that Kharg Island sits at a critical intersection of both energy logistics and naval oversight. The IRGC Navy has long operated observation systems there designed to track shipping traffic moving through the Strait of Hormuz and surrounding Gulf waters. According to U.S. officials, those systems include radar installations, communication relays, and drone launch platforms. U.S. media reports suggested that the operation relied on long-range precision, weapons designed to strike fixed installations with minimal collateral damage. These systems use advanced guidance technology, often combining satellite navigation with onboard targeting sensors, allowing projectiles to strike within meters of their intended coordinates. American officials emphasized that the strikes were carefully calibrated to avoid damaging oil loading terminals and civilian maritime facilities operating nearby. Kharg Island's energy infrastructure remains essential to global oil markets, and any disruption there carries immediate economic consequences. Ben Defense analysts also explained how maritime surveillance networks function in this region. Radar arrays positioned along coastal islands track vessel movements across the Gulf, relaying that data to command centers that coordinate naval patrols. Disabling these systems, even temporarily, can significantly reduce situational awareness for naval forces operating nearby. Lanes between these narratives lies a complex reality that analysts are still working to understand. Beyond, what does this mean for the global energy system? The answer is simple. Kharg Island is one of the most strategically important oil export points on the planet. Kharg Island functions as Iran's primary crude oil export terminal. Massive storage tanks across the island hold tens of millions of barrels of oil awaiting shipment. Tankers dock at its loading terminals daily, transporting Iranian crude through the Persian Gulf toward global markets in Asia and beyond. According to international energy analysts, as much as 20% of Iran's oil exports pass through Kharg Island's facilities. That concentration makes the island not just an economic hub, but a critical node in the global energy supply chain. But Kharg Island is more than a commercial export terminal. Iranian military planners have long integrated defensive infrastructure around the island to protect these operations. Radar stations monitor airspace and sea lanes. Coastal defense systems track approaching vessels. Naval patrol units stationed nearby escort tankers departing the terminal. Because of this dual-use structure, Kharg Island represents a unique intersection of energy infrastructure and military capability. A strike against military installations there sends a signal that extends far beyond the island itself. Analysts noted that targeting the IRGC surveillance infrastructure could temporarily reduce Iran's ability to monitor shipping lanes across the northern Persian Gulf. That region includes several vital maritime routes used by oil tankers traveling toward the Strait of Hormuz. What happens in these waters matters to the entire global economy. The message was clear. Strategic infrastructure tied to Iran's energy and maritime power projection is now directly within the operational reach of U.S. military force. The immediate military consequences were visible within hours of the reported strikes. According to Iranian naval patrol vessels increased activity throughout the northern Persian Gulf shortly after the explosions on Kharg Island. Several IRGC naval units reportedly moved into defensive positions near key shipping corridors. That spike in military patrol activity has consequences far beyond the Gulf's northern waters. Regional governments responded quickly. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait reportedly increased maritime monitoring around their own oil terminals and coastal infrastructure. According to regional Gulf states maintain extensive radar coverage along their coastlines to track aircraft and naval activity across the region. Energy markets reacted almost immediately. Global oil prices rose in early trading hours following reports of the strike. Brent crude futures climbed several percentage points as traders assessed the possibility of disruptions near one of the world's most sensitive energy corridors. Shipping insurance premiums for tankers operating near the Strait of Hormuz also increased. That spike in energy prices has consequences far beyond the Persian Gulf. Diplomatic channels quickly activated as well. European officials reportedly began consultations through established crisis communication mechanisms aimed at preventing further escalation between Washington and Tehran. According to diplomatic sources, several governments urged restraint from all sides, emphasizing the fragile stability of global energy markets. Land inside the United States, the political response also began to take shape. Members of Congress from both parties called for briefings from defense officials regarding the reported strike. Lawmakers sought clarification about the operation's objectives, its potential consequences, and the broader strategic context. Mandarin political debate in Washington often follows moments like this. Some lawmakers emphasize deterrence and military readiness. Others warn about escalation risks in one of the world's most volatile regions. Every layer of reaction points toward a larger question: where does this confrontation go next? What? Iran maintains that Kharg Island was deliberately targeted as part of a broader effort to weaken the country's economic lifeline. Officials maintain that the strikes focused narrowly on military installations associated with maritime surveillance operations. Both narratives emphasize different aspects of the same event. Kharg Island sits at the intersection of energy markets, military strategy, and geopolitical rivalry. In the Persian Gulf, any incident there carries implications far beyond the island itself. Oil exports move through its terminals. Naval monitoring systems operate along its coastlines. Global shipping routes pass nearby every single day. Analysts note that tensions between Washington and Tehran have repeatedly centered on control of maritime security in the Gulf. The region's narrow waterways handle an enormous share of the world's oil supply. Even minor disruptions can ripple across global markets within hours. That fragile balance now faces another test. Military signals have been sent. Economic concerns have been triggered. Diplomatic conversations have begun behind closed doors. But the long-term consequences. Will this strike remain a limited military signal aimed at strategic infrastructure, or will it mark the opening stage of a broader confrontation in one of the world's most critical energy corridors? Stay tuned for further updates as this situation continues to develop. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss the latest dramatic geopolitical developments shaping the world.